Good day everyone, and welcome to this educational webinar hosted by the International Trade Council. My name is Daisy, and I'm excited to be your host today. Before we begin, let's confirm the technical setup. Please type yes in the chat box if you can hear me clearly and see the presentation on your screen. We'll take a quick moment to make sure everyone is connected. Okay, great. Thanks for confirming the setup. We're excited to have you with us for today's insightful session. Our webinar today, titled Navigating U.S. Investment Visas, EB5 and E2 Opportunities with Select USA, will cover understanding the eligibility criteria, investment thresholds, and benefits of the EB5 and E2 visas. And second is how to use Select USA resources to help with business investment and expansion, and how to develop a plan that meets immigration requirements while maximizing business and tax benefits. And last is how to stay updated on regulatory changes and learn from real life success stories. It's now my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Joyce Williams, the managing attorney who brings exceptional knowledge and insights to the topic. We are thrilled to hear from her today. So, without further ado, please welcome Joyce Williams.
Thank you so much, Daisy, and I'm very delighted to be speaking with you this morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are joining us from. And like Daisy said, we'll be talking about the EB5 immigration program, your pathway to permanent residency in the United States. And then we'll also take this opportunity to highlight the Select USA program and how this can enhance your ability to select your EB5 program, as well as the other employment visa opportunities that is here. So, of course, disclaimer, this is not a legal advice. This is just informational. So if you are interested in pursuing this program, I recommend that after the presentation, you can make an appointment, and then we can look at your case on case-by-case basis. So this is a general information, and it should not be construed as legal advice. So with that said, let's look at what is the EB5 program. So EB5 was established in the 1990s to stimulate the U.S. economy by Congress. So it's a part of the Immigration Act to attract foreign capital to U.S. and to stimulate the economic growth through job creation. And the program offers a pathway to lawful permanent residency, or what is popularly called the green card, for foreign investors who meets the minimum investment and job creation requirements. So again, this is for informational. So we'll be looking at the basic requirements for this program, and we'll have, if someone is interested in applying, we'll go into case by case afterwards when they make an appointment. So, who administered the UB5 program? So, the UB5 program is managed by the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, also known as USCIS, which is a division of the Department of Homeland Security, which oversees the process of application to ensure compliance with immigration laws and monitors investment to prevent fraud and misuse of the program. So, how does the UB5 program works? So, there are different ways that you can participate in the UB5 program. One is that you can, two ways. One is direct investment, which is more of an entrepreneurial model. In this case, when you choose the direct investment model, you will invest in a new business or expand an existing business in the US. So that means that either you are designing your own business plan and starting a whole new company in the US, or you can also invest in an existing business and help to expand that business in the US. And the business must create at least 10 full-time jobs for US workers. Whether it's a new business or an existing business, it must create at least 10 full-time jobs for US workers. And when you choose the direct investment model, the investor is actively participating in the business, which means the management of the business. And so it's a very hands-on approach when you choose this model. The second way that you can also participate in the EB5 program is through the USCIS designated regional centers. So those are uh, regional centers that are already pre-selected and vetted by USCIS. So the investor will fund a project that is already approved by the regional center, a government recognized entity that pulls EB5 investments into larger scale projects. It's more indirect and it creates the jobs that you need. And the investments will count towards the job creation. The investor plays a more of a passive role in the regional center approach. So, what are the key differences? As I mentioned, with the direct investment, it's a lot of hands-on. You require personal management, limited indirect job counting. And then with the regional centers, you have passive, but job creation can be indirect and is widely used in real estate infrastructure and larger scale projects. So whether you go the entrepreneur model or the direct investment or the regional center will also depend on the type of business that you want to have. So, what's the purpose of the EB5 program? Really, the primary objective for the US government standpoint is to attract foreign investment, to inject capital into the US economy, supporting local businesses and infrastructure projects. It's also to stimulate economic growth. So there's a lot of encouragement to development in areas that is called T, that is targeted employment areas, including rural and high unemployment regions. And also to create jobs for US workers. Each investment, as I said, has to create at least 10 full-time jobs per investor. And then it's also to encourage innovation and development. You know, many EB5 investment fund new industries, renewable energy, real estate, and other high impact sectors. So, if you're thinking about applying for the EB5, what are some of the benefits? Well, one of the advantage of the EB5 is the flexibility of the investor program. It offers really one of the most flexible investor programs in the world. And later on the presentation, you will see in comparison to other investor programs around the world. Number one, there's pathway to US permanent residency, that's green card. Most of the time people obtain permanent residency through family, that is either children, marriage, or parents. So when you don't have those opportunities, the UB5 can provide an opportunity for you to for the investor and their immediate family members, that is their spouse and any unmarried children under 21 years old, to receive conditional green card that will convert to permanent residency after fulfilling all the program requirements. Also, if you choose the regional center investments, there is no day-to-day business management. So for someone who has multiple investments and they're busy, there is a way for them to do invest and get the green card without actively running a business themselves, if they choose a regional center approach. It also makes it ideal for passive investors who prefer not to be in the daily operation. So if you're looking for passive income as well, that is another great way by investing in the EB5 through the regional centers. It also gives you to freedom to live and work or study or retire in any place in the US. So let's say that you're an investor and you invested, your company is in New York. You don't need to live in New York. You don't have to live in New York. You could be living in Wisconsin. So you can live anywhere in the US. You can settle. A lot of EB5 investors are in areas such as New York, Los Angeles, Miami, or even smaller communities. So you can, it's not restricted or tied to where you invested. Also, your children can benefit from education. So, children of UB5 investors can attend public schools, universities, and colleges in the US. And many states offer in state tuition to green card holders. So, it significantly reduced the cost of education in the US. Whereas, if you're an international student, you have to really pay hefty prices for education. So, this is a good way also if you're trying to have your kids educated in the US, that will help them. Again, unlike other visa categories like H-1Bs and the L-1s, you don't need an employer sponsorship. It's a self-sponsor application. And you can start any business, you can change jobs, you can retire, you can do any of those things without any visa restrictions. It also gives you a pathway to citizenship. So 5 years after having your green card as a EB5 investor, you can apply for US citizenship. You can apply for US citizenship. So that also gives you an opportunity to become a US citizen. There are no language or educational requirements for you to be able to participate in the EB5. Unlike other employment based visas, you don't need to have a specific educational level, job experience, or English proficiency. It's also much more faster and predictable than other family based green cards. When you have family sponsored green card, you're looking at about 10 years, sometimes even to wait. So the EB5 is a very relatively faster route, but that is also to exempt that countries like China and India, there's a lot of backlog. So if you're from either China or India, it might not be as fast as other areas. And then, unlike immigration, other traditional immigration options, the EB5s are not a donation or sunk cost. So you will receive some financial return on your investment. And the capital, of course, every investment is at risk, but it still gives you an opportunity for you to make some money. And so, how understanding the EB5 process, you do have a 1.50 million minimum investments that you need to put in when you are applying for the EB5, or when you are applying for EB5 in the targeted employment areas, you can invest in $800. So the amounts that you will invest in will be $800. And of course, your capital must be from a lawful source. So there is an audit that will be done to make sure that the money is coming from legal activity or from a lawful source. I've talked about this in terms of the direct investments versus the commercial, the regional center amounts. Um, the investments, again, uh, must remain at risk, which means that once you get your provisional approval, you cannot take your money out of their business. You need to let it remain at risk, and then you have to, until your 829 petition is approved, before you can even withdraw from the investment. Um, let's see. What are the I've talked about this. So I had a quote that, former the late President Kennedy said, "Immigration is the ultimate symbol of hope and opportunity for everyone." So even now, it's still very much an attractive option. So what's the EB5 process timeline? You need to file a form I-526 petition. And then once that part of that goes filing the I-526 petition is that you have to prove that your investments are from lawful sources and they meet the EB5 requirements. Right now, the current processing time for applying in a targeted employment area is about 12 to 18 months with priority processing, and then 24 to 36 months for non-targeted employment area. So those are the timelines that you would have to wait. And then when your I-526 is approved, you will get a 2-year conditional green card via adjustment of status. So if the person is applying while they are already in the US, they would do Form I-485, which is the adjustment of status. If you are outside of the US, you do a consular processing, which is the Form DS-260. And then once after 90 days before the 2 year is over, you need to file I-829 to remove the condition, because you remember your initial filing gives you only 2-year conditional. And then after the 90 days before the 2 year is over, you need to file the 829 to remove the condition. And once it's, and you have to show when you are removing the condition that your investments remain at risk and you've created at least 10 jobs. And once your approval goes through, you get your permanent green card, which is typically a 10-year green card. But like I said, with 5 years after that, you'll be able to apply for your citizenship. Um, let's see what other things. Um, so that's some overview of the EB5 process. I'm going to talk a little bit about the SelectUSA program as well, and then bring it all together. So I think we're still doing very well on time. So the SelectUSA program is managed by the Department of Commerce, and it plays a very vital role in promoting and facilitating the foreign direct investment in the US. So it serves as an economic development platform that connects investors, which includes the EB5 applicants, with investment opportunities across the US. And it's typically held every year. Usually there are road shows that goes into different countries and different regions around the world, but they are typically held every year here in the Washington D.C. area in May. And I think it's about 3 days, and it involves so many different opportunities. So that's another opportunity for you to come to the US and attend SelectUSA and meet investors, and also meet key governors and political officials. Typically, almost every state sends a delegation to come. So that's a really good networking opportunity as well. And how does SelectUSA support EB5 investors? They help with market entry assistance. So they facilitate connections between EB5 investors and US economic development organizations to explore investment ready projects, which is really a plus for any investor, because part of investing is doing due diligence, and that can be costly and also time consuming. So at SelectUSA, you get to meet government officials and other private sector entities who have shovel-ready projects for you to look at and to be able to invest in. It also offers regional insight and state-specific investment incentives to optimize the location selection. So, for instance, you are outside of the US, you are Googling and thinking, okay, I want to invest somewhere in Tennessee, Nashville, it looks good. But at SelectUSA, you will be able to sit down with maybe officials from Nashville and look in, and you might think, okay, maybe that's not the best location. So it's very important. And then also, once they hear what your business plan and ideas looks like, the state can also choose to offer incentives for you because you are bringing jobs into their community. So it's really good to have that face time with government officials and political officials during the Select USA. It's also assist in navigating the state and federal regulatory requirements. So again, it reduces your barrier to entry for foreign investors. The other part is also it provides guidance and economic insights. So data-driven market research on industry trends such as tax structures and economic projections to help you to make informed decisions, as well as also getting access to sector-specific growth opportunities, so you can align your capital with high growth industries. And then they one of the things that I do like about Select USA is that they offer risk assessments tools to analyze your the viability of the project, especially when you're going to a targeted employment area. So it might sound good and other things like that, but really getting the risk analysis and being able to see what the area looks like, what the demographics and the dynamics of business going on. It's very helpful. And of course, you have the networking opportunity. You have US businesses, state representative, government agencies, and industry leaders. They do provide direct engagement with attendees and also several presentations throughout the days that is going on. And then there's also opportunity for even non-investors to engage in policy advocacy and regulatory engagement. So if you've gone through this process, or if you are trying to go through the process and you've seen some challenges that makes it difficult, this is an opportunity for you to even engage some and do some advocacy to try to streamline the process and make it easier. So what's the synergy between the UB5 and Select USA? They share a common goal. The goal is to boost foreign direct investment and to drive job creation in the US economy. So it's just really, as a potential UB5 investor, you can enhance your investment by really attending Select USA. Um, I wanted to also highlight some current policy, climate, and the EB5 implication. I think that we've had a change in government and there's a lot of different information floating out. So when it comes to the UB5 investment program, particularly in area of visa processing, foreign investment regulation, and economic incentives. Um, we did have the EB5 Reform and Integrity Act of 2022 to bring in more transparency and investor protection and oversight for EB5 investments. So that's a steps by the government to make sure that you are not being scammed or your investments are not taken for granted. And then USCIS is also trying to process and gradually reducing the backlog in areas such as China and India, and now they offer priority processing also for targeted employment area. And there's also been an increased compliance requirements for the source of fund documentation and job creation tracking. So that have raised due diligence standard, but again, it's protect both the investments and then also for you to be able to show proof that you have met the eligibility requirement when it's time to remove the conditions on your green card. So the Biden administration emphasized on infrastructure, green energy, and advanced manufacturing, and it led to an increase in government-backed investment projects, many of which qualified for the EB5. The state and local governments are always promoting the targeted employment area investments so that the EB5 investors can benefit from economic incentive and then also expedited processing. And then the push for reshoring made in with this current administration, it's more about made in America and America first. So reshoring, U.S. manufacturing and technology innovations will be like the new areas that would attract new EB5 investments in those critical industries. So, if you're thinking about investing in the US now through EB5, those are the areas manufacturing, technology, those are the areas that you should be looking at. Um, there's been an increased demand for US residency, especially with economic uncertainties around the world. So we had seen a lot more people attempting or trying to do UB5 investments as a way to bring their family to the US for business and family security. The visa backlogs for countries such as China and India still remains a challenge, but with the new rural investments incentives, especially with the expedited processing, I think that should be able to help. If you pay for the premium processing, it will move forward quicker. So this by leveraging YIBI, the SelectUSA conference, I think that you put yourself ahead of the pack when it comes to applying for your YIBI 5 visa investments. Um, what is I mentioned the cost and the time for US. So what are the some of the other investments programs around the world? You in Portugal, you have the golden visa, which you need about 280 to 500 thousand euros for you to apply, and then it takes about 12 to 18 months. There's no residency requirement, and you do also have a pathway to citizenship after 5 years. UK is at 2 million, takes about 24 months. Canada, no setup amount depending on the business funding, and it takes about 12 to 24 months. You have other popular areas include Malta and Turkey. Um, the key takeaway from um, this presentation is that the EB5 provides a direct path to U.S. residency and citizenship eventually, even though it requires a bit of a time. The Portugal visa, for instance, is flexible, but there's no because there's no residency requirements. Um, and you coming to select USA gives you the opportunity to really put yourself before officials and get your homework done. Um, there are visa quotas involved in this. As I said, there are countries that backlog. So the annual visa quota is about 10,000, and the processing time again varies by country of origin, and priority dates, and also retrogression considerating. So depending on your country, again, if you're coming from China or India, you might have a longer waiting time, even with premium processing, especially when you are doing consular processing, that is going through the embassy if you are not already here in the US. Um, Again, right now, the key consideration to think about, of course, with any investments, you know that there's a risk and potential loss of capital. Now, we are not clear what the administration's priority will be in terms of EB5s. There are lots going on in immigration policies right now. So we're still waiting to see what if there are going to be any changes in EB5. So it might not be you can still go ahead and apply under the current regulations, but of course, that's always something to keep in mind. And you have to make sure that documentation is very important so that you can have the job creation requirements and compliance. Of course, risk of project failure. So make sure that whatever area you are investing in or the sector, you have done your homework. And then there are always, again, we just had a change in government, so there could be some regulatory changes coming up. Fraud concerns are always issues, and compliance risk, just as you have these considerations when you're investing in any other country. I have gone over this. I've gone over this. Um, So again, if you are ever interested in discussing UB5 and what the options look like, we typically start the process with scheduling a consultation with us. Then we will prepare the document and do audit of source of funding, and then we will begin the application process. So I think we are a minute to have past the hour. I will open it up for questions, um, and then we can go from there.
Hi, thank you for that presentation, Joyce. Daisy, please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Joyce Williams, for sharing such valuable information. So, before we jump into the Q&A, I'd like to take a moment to introduce you to Adam FTD, a powerful platform designed to help businesses and individuals streamline their workflow and enhance productivity. Whether you're looking for advanced data management solutions, seamless integrations, or innovative digital tools, Adam FTD has you covered. To learn more, visit adamftd.com and discover how it can transform the way you work. So now let's move on to the Q&A session. We have question here from Danny. If our capital in EB5 runs out, does that affect our visa? As in, if the investment fails? So, Joyce?
Um, so you have the initial 2 year conditional green card. And so you get that. And then when you are going to remove the conditions, you will still need to show that your capital is still at risk, and then you still created jobs. So depending on how your capital ran out, whether if you pull the capital out of the investment, then that will affect your visa when you are trying to remove the condition. But let's say that you invested in an area, everything was going well, and then due to natural disaster like the California fires, the company burned down, or something of that nature. So it wasn't directly your fault. By pulling your investment, then that will not affect your visa.
Okay, do we have any questions from the attendees?
Any more questions, guys? Please feel free to type in your question here in the Q&A box or in the chat box.
Okay. Question from Anup Kumar. EB5 visa while having the head office in India. We are a import-export business dealing with machinery and cutting tools.
So if I understand your question is you have a head office in India. So you can still do an EB5 investment by coming to the US to establish a subsidiary or another branch of your company, or going through the regional center, and then making an investment in. So the company headquarters doesn't necessarily need to be in the US. You'll still be able to apply for the EB5 investment. You just need to have operations in the US, and then you need that 10 employment creation, job creation.
All right, thank you. So while we are waiting for other questions, I would like to make an announcement. So this webinar is recorded, so please make sure to, if you would like to replay, I can go to our YouTube channel, International Trade Council, and the recording should be available there in the next 24 to 48 hours. You'll also receive a certificate of participation for attending this webinar, and you will receive it in the next few days. So yeah, any more questions?
If there are not Any questions? I can go ahead and also talk a little bit about the E2 visa. And
Okay,
then if somebody has a question, then I will just answer.
sure.
So you can think about your questions. So the E2 visa is a non-immigrant visa, which means it does not automatically lead to a green card. But you need to still make an investment in a US business. So you need to make a substantial investment in a US business. The rule of thumb is 50 plus one investments will be considered substantial. So if you become a majority investor in a company, that will be considered substantial investments. And then you also, the individual, the applicant, will need to be, the investor will need to be from a treaty country. So a treaty country means countries that have commerce and navigation treaty with the US. So the US has treaties with some countries, and you can, if you are from one of those countries, then you can do the E2 visa. And then your spouse and your children under 21 can also accompany you and live in US. Your spouses can work. Unlike the EB5, because you don't have a green card, if your children need to attend colleges and school, you will need to pay for that. You don't get in-state tuition for that. Um, Also, you need to meet USCIS requirements, and the requirement is, of course, you need to be a citizen of a country that has treaty with the US. So, example of the treaty countries: Canada, UK, France, Germany, Italy, Australia, South Korea, Mexico, and many, many others. You also China, India, Russia do not have E2 treaties with the US, so their citizenship are not eligible unless they obtain a citizenship from E2 countries such as Grenada or Turkey. So we've seen people from China, India, Russia who are applying for E2, but they've acquired second citizenship from countries like Grenada or Turkey. The investment must be in a bona fide US business. So the US business, first of all, has to be a business that is legal and legitimate. And the investment must not be marginal. It should be able to generate enough income to support the investor and their family. And the US government does not define a specific minimum amount, but most of the successful applicants that we've seen, they've invested about 100,000 to about 150,000 upwards in order for it to be considered substantial investments. And then ownership and operational control. Again, you must own at least 50% of the business or have a controlling role in its operation. Um, so with the U2 passive investments such as real estate purchase without you actively managing the purchase of the real estates, like for instance, giving it out for rent and you being the management company, does not qualify you for the U2. The business must be active and be for profit. The investment must go into an active and operating business that provide goods or services. So if you have a nonprofit, you cannot use it, or you can invest in a nonprofit and use it for the YouTube purposes. Um, the business cannot also be, again, for passive income like rental property or stock trading. It does not qualify. And job creation and economic impact. So unlike the EB5, when it comes to the E2, there is no formal job creation requirement, but the business should contribute to the US economy and be generating employment opportunities, even though there is no specific requirement, unlike the EB5, that you need to create at least 10 employment opportunities. So the application process, business formation and investment. So you need to select a qualifying business and invest the required capital. You need to prepare a business plan outlining the business structure, financial, job creation opportunities, and economic impact. And then if you are outside of the US, you need to apply through the US consulate or the embassy in your home country. And then if you're inside the US, then we fill out the form I-129 for a change of status to E2, depending on how you entered the US to begin with. If you applied outside of the US, you attend an interview at the consulate, and if you approve, you receive your E2 visa that will allow you to enter the US and operate your business. The typical processing time for this is about 3 to 6 months. You can always pay premium processors for additional fee to make it faster. So the benefit to it is that it's a long-term renewable visa. So as long as the business remains operational, the visa can be renewed indefinitely. Your spouses can work, your children can attend school um, without needing a visa. And there's no, again, job minimum job creation. So you could be the only person employed in the business, and that is fine. And there's lower investment requirements. So unlike the 8 million and 1 million, 800,000 and 1 million plus that you need for the EB5, you can start with the E2 from $100,000 up, and it's a faster processing time than the EB5. We've seen some people start with EB5 and then eventually convert or apply for. Sorry, they start with E2 and then they eventually apply or convert to an EB5. The limitation is that there is no direct pathway to green card unless at some point you apply for the EB5 and you get it. It's limited to treaty countries. So if you are not from a treaty country, you cannot apply unless you obtain a secondary citizenship from a treaty country. And then your investment always must remain at risk. So you must commit the funds before the visa is approved. And so there's that financial risk involved, and you cannot just withdraw your money.
Sorry,
Uh,
Joyce, to interrupt.
okay.
There are several questions here. You can actually just see in the chat box. Maybe we can answer some of them. Daisy, can you please project the first one from Danny?
Yeah, there's a question here from Danny. For the EB2, does the company have to be a certain size or valuation? And for our investment, does it have a minimum like the EB5?
So for the EB2, no, but typically what we've seen for the visa to be approved is that you need to invest a minimum of $100,000. So that the government hasn't does not have a specified amount, but we've seen that when people have invested about 100,000, it's easy to prove the viability of the business entity, and also for the investment as a substantial investment into the business for it to work.
Okay. Okay, we have another question from Stuart. Is it only cash or can other assets be considered?
So it's cash.
Okay. And another from Danny. Is there an event like Select USA for EB2?
So yes, when you come to Select USA, you might be able to they've primarily focused on investments. So whether you are EB2, EB visas, or EB5, you would meet and network with people who can help you. So Select USA is not generally specific for EB5. It's for all the business, employment, investment type visas for the US. But because this today's presentation was more focused on EB5, so that's why I linked it to the Select USA, highlighting what they do specifically for EB5. But yes, Select USA is also for EB2.
Okay. Danny was also asking, can you retire in the US with EB2?
As long as the business is still going on, but with EB2, you need to have an active role in the business. So retirement can be, what's it called? it's subject to interpretation, right? Are you completely hands off, or you are still involved but more taking a back role? But with the EB2, you do require to have an active role in the business, unlike the EB5 that you can completely be hands off.
Okay, thank you so much, Joy. So, as we wrap up today's session, here are a few important updates. Like what Ron says before, the webinar recording will be available on the International Trade Council's YouTube channel for your reference, and all participants will receive a certificate of participation via email soon. So, keep an eye on your inbox for more details. So, before we end, Joyce Williams, do you have any final thoughts or messages to share?
No, we are happy to assist any clients who are looking to come into the US. Select USA is open for registration, and so I can share information to all the participants and register. You can reach out to us. We always have a table and have our own reception during that time, and we can, once people register ahead of time, we are happy to facilitate and collaborate to set up meetings that will meet their needs. So even though the climate looks like America first, the US is always open for business, a great place to invest. And so don't shy away from investing in the US. I think it's actually a great opportunity to come in, especially now. All areas are very open to the government, unlike in the last 4 years where it was much more focused on renewable energies. This time, there are other opportunities that are also open. So we look forward to welcoming you to the US, whether as an investor or as an attendee of Select USA. Feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be delighted to walk you through the process.
Okay, so we still have time. I see a question here from Chibukem. Okay, I will show it. Are there legit companies one can invest in for EB2, most especially outside from the US to avoid loss of funds?
Yes, so there are legitimate companies that you can invest in. As I was explaining, the EB2, you can start a new business, or you can invest in an existing business. But unlike the EB5, where you have regional centers that are already pre-vetted, you need to have do your due diligence to make sure that the companies that you are investing in, or the company that you want to invest in, it's legitimate. So there's always you need to always work with the U.S. Attorney to make sure that they can audit that company, get all the necessary information for you before you decide to make an investment in for UB2 purposes.
Okay, thank you. So Chibukem is asking for your LinkedIn and necessary website links. So can you drop your website links on the chat box?
Yes.
You may also need to type in your email address, Joyce. So if anyone would like to reach out to you directly, please feel free to reach out to Joyce. And but don't worry, you can also reach out ITC if you would like to get to know more about the topic and you would like to have another call with Joyce. Please feel free to reach out to us as well. All right.
Okay, great. That brings us to the end of our session. A huge thank you to Joyce Williams for sharing their expertise, and to all of you for attending and engaging with us today. If you have any further questions, feel free to connect with us or the speaker after the session. Okay, thank you again, and we hope to see you at our future event. Goodbye for now.
Thank you so
Thank,
much for your time, Joyce.
bye. Thank you all.
Bye.